Hello everybody and welcome to part 4 of What If Peter Parker Was in My Hero Academia, the remake, aka the longest video on my channel so far. I do hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, share it with everyone you can because this series deserves some recognition. It's taking a long time to make any single series and I really want them to do well. That said, you can always join my Discord, link in the description below. And I want to keep the introduction short, so enjoy the video after that intro. After the events that transpired at the USJ, Peter is given a day off to relax and recuperate. He still has a broken arm, so has to wait for it to heal. Aunt May took his brothers to their school so Peter could sleep in. Once he wakes up, he's bored out of his mind, not having anything to do, so he repairs his broken web shooters. After he goes to pick up his brothers, he looks after them for the day, buying some McDonald's and renting Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back for them to watch together. The day quickly comes to an end. The next day, Peter follows his regular routine, taking his brothers to school before going to his own. Right before homeroom starts, the students of Class 1A are talking about how they were on the news because of the USJ incident. Kitty turns to Peter and asks, "How are your injuries?" "You did take a huge beating at the USJ." "I'm fine," answers Peter confidently. "You should have seen the other guys." "Just because the others got hurt more doesn't discredit the amount of pain you went through," Kitty responds. She looks Peter over, spying the cast on his arm. "Is your arm alright?" "Yeah, it's just a bit stubborn. That tombstone guy kinda broke it in half. It takes a while to heal, even for me. Recovery girl said should be fully healed by tomorrow," Peter answers. "It's the only part of my body that hasn't fully healed." Kid grabs a pen and approaches Peter's arm. "What are you doing?" he asks as she gets close, blushing a bit. "I'm going to sign it, of course," Kitty answers. She signs her name with a little heart over the I. Before Peter can say anything in response, Ida takes the stand, announcing that homeroom is about to begin. The class then starts wondering who they'll have as a substitute since Aizawa is in the hospital. A minute later, Aizawa walks into the room, sliding the door open with his feet. The class expresses their concern over his well-being. He responds by saying, "My well-being is irrelevant. What's more important is that your fight isn't over yet." While the class wonders what he means, Peter thinks, "Wow, he's a lot tougher than I gave him credit for." "The UA Sports Festival is about to start," Aizawa clarifies. Part of the class gets excited at the prospect of the UA Sports Festival, the other a bit concerned. Peter is the one that expresses his concerns first. "Why are we holding such a public event right after a villain attack? Doesn't the staff realize that they could attack again?" Peter asks. Aizawa addresses the concern of his students, telling them that security will be higher compared to previous years. That's a way of saying that everything's alright now, and by explaining the impact that the sports festival has on the careers of young heroes. "Yeah, I understand the possibilities, but shouldn't we still prioritize security over all this?" Peter asks. "Don't you know how important the UA Sports Festival is?" asks Midoriya. "Not really. I haven't watched any myself, and we didn't really get them in the States, but I think I get the idea of what they're like," Peter answers. Midoriya then explains to Peter exactly why the sports festival is so important. After homeroom, classes go like normal, until lunch. While Peter leaves for the cafeteria, the class starts talking about how excited they are for the sports festival. He buys some food and sits down at his regular table. When he does, Harry instantly asks, "Are you alright, Peter?" The others look at him concerned. "Yeah, I'm fine. Why do you ask?" Peter answers. "Dude, are you serious?" asks Amadeus. "Come on, you're in Class A. You were there when the villains attacked. We were worried sick. Especially since you guys were given that day off yesterday. We couldn't talk to you." "I'm actually more concerned with the cast. What happened?" asks Harry. "You know, if you were that concerned, you could have just called me or texted." Peter says. About that. We don't have your number, says Harry. Here, says Peter while writing it down and handing it to them. As for what happened, you probably saw it on the news already. Some people appeared out of nowhere, teleported us across the USJ facility, and a bunch of villains attacked us, Peter explains. And how did you break your arm exactly? Asks Harry while inspecting the cast. And who's Kitty with the heart over the eye? Peter blushes for a moment, causing Riri to jump into the conversation. Ooh, gossip! So who's this Kitty? Do you like her? Okay, one question at a time, Peter says, taking a deep breath. First, I broke my arm fighting off 6 villains. I actually got hurt a lot worse than just the arm, but the arm is the only thing that hasn't finished healing. I actually had 3rd-degree burns, a broken leg, a bloody forehead, Peter says. He's dodging the subject, says Harry accusingly. No, I'm not. Kitty's just a classmate. She asked me if I was okay and then signed my cast this morning, Peter says, blushing a bit. Harry pulls out a green pen and signs the cast himself, and other support course students do the same. After lunch, classes resume like normal. After they end, Peter tries to leave to go to his supplementary classes, but finds the exit overcrowded by a bunch of students from different courses. I kind of have to go, so you mind scooching? Peter asks. They don't move. Ida steps up and asks, do you have some sort of business with our class? What are you all doing here? Shinso steps out of the crowd, introducing himself and warning the class. I don't have time for all this foreshadowing exposition, says Peter, annoyed. I'm gonna be late for class. He jumps onto the ceiling, walking on it until he's clear. Then he jumps back down. He lands on the ground, turns to the direction of the support course, and when he turns, he finds himself right in front of Liz Allen. Oh hey, says Peter, blushing a bit since she's way too close. Hello, Peter. Didn't expect to see you jumping from the roof. Still surprising to me that you have a quirk, she says. Any particular reason why you're going towards my class? Peter asks. Not really. Heard you guys were attacked by some villains. Totally honest here, I wasn't totally sure if you were support or if you actually got to go hero. Think Flash would die laughing if he knew. So you chose hero, huh? Liz asks. Well, yes, but actually no. If you want to talk, do you mind if we keep walking? I kind of have to get to some extra classes, Peter says. Extra classes? Asks Liz as Peter starts walking. She follows while Peter explains. I did so well on both exams that the school allowed me to follow both curriculums. Kinda. I'm officially in Class 1A, but get extra lessons in support course. To learn and work and stuff. Yeah. I actually tend to hang out with them more. That's not the only reason you were coming to Class 1A, right? Honestly, I just wanted to make sure you weren't dead. You never answered my text and I didn't see you at lunch, Liz says. Huh? I changed my phone when I moved to Japan. I guess you don't have the right number anymore. Nice to know you care, though, Peter says as they arrive at the support course. Well, this is me. Hey, before you go, the number, Liz says, pulling out her cell phone. They exchange numbers, and to make sure it works, Liz quickly calls Peter. Okay then, bye, Puny Parker. See you soon, Liz says, leaving to go home. Peter opens the door to the room and says, Hello, Power Loader. Sorry I'm late. There were a couple problems getting here today. Don't worry, after what happened at the USJ, it's understandable. Come in, Power Loader says. For the next hour and a half, Peter and Power Loader go over the material. Okay, you seem to get it pretty well like usual, but you should still look it over. I'm quizzing everyone on the unit next week, so you should study too, Power Loader says as they finish the lesson. I actually have a question, Peter says, raising his hand. Our lesson's ended, plus it's only the two of us. I don't think you have to raise your hand. Just ask the question, says Power Loader and responds. It's about the UA Sports Festival. The others told me that they were going to be allowed to use their inventions that they made. Does the same apply to me? What's the situation here? Peter asks. Tough question, answers Power Loader. I'd have to ask the school staff to know for certain, but since you don't develop as much as the others, I'd say you'd be allowed. I think you'd be able to bring about 5 items, as long as you made them yourself, of course. The next 2 weeks pass, with Peter both training intensely for the sports festival and developing new support items. He barely manages to finish his spider tracer and new web shooters in time. The day of the sports festival arrives. It being such an important day, Ame asks for the day off, and Peter's brothers got one as well. They wish him luck as he leaves for school. When he arrives at UA, he's guided into the changing room, where he puts on his school uniform. After, he goes to the waiting area. The class waits for the sports festival to start. All the while, they chat amongst themselves. Ida comes into the waiting room and warns the class that they'll be called into the arena soon. While everyone tries to calm their nerves, Todoroki approaches Midoriya. He issues a declaration of war against Midoriya, telling him that he'll beat him. Midoriya retorts the declaration by saying that he'll be aiming for the top 2. Why have we had so many declarations of war? Who's next? Asks Peter. Clayton approaches Peter, and Peter says, I swear I was kidding. I don't care, says Clayton. I just want you to know, I won't lose to you again, Peter Parker. After the declaration, the classes are called into the stadium. All the first years are called in by President Mike. After all classes are called in, the chief umpire is revealed to be Midnight. Bakugo is then called to give the student pledge. He slowly goes to the stand and walks up to the mic and says, I just want to say, I'm gonna win. The comment angers the other classes as well as many members of the audience. Regardless, the festival starts with Midnight revealing the first event. After the wheel goes through a bunch of options, it lands on obstacle race. Midnight then proceeds to explain the exact details of the obstacle race. The students get in position and the countdown begins. As the race begins, in the commentating booth, President Mike says, and we're off to a racing start. How about some color commentary, mummy man? How did you drag me into this? Asks Aizawa. Without answering his friend, President Mike asks, what you would be paying attention to in the early stages of the race? The doorway, answers Aizawa. The students of all different classes enter the doorway, finding it overcrowded. Peter decides to go around it, running on the walls to go faster. Other students see him and leave the crowd in order to go faster. Liz lights herself on fire and flies over the crowd until she lands outside the gate. That bought me time, but it's not like I can maintain that for long, without overexhausting myself at least, she says as she lands. Another student from Class 1B, Sam Alexander, does something similar, using a bit of his energy to fly over the crowd and land outside. Don't want to use all my energy now, he says as he keeps running. Pierce sees that people fly over the crowd and is a bit stunned that Liz could do that. He sees other members of his class jump over the crowd, just as Todoroki freezes the gate over. Peter, to avoid the ice that even expands to the wall, shoots a web at the roof and hangs there for a moment. He then goes back to the wall and keeps going until he leaves the gates. He was surprised to see people flying, but he's even more surprised that someone else is wall crawling. Peter jumps off the wall and keeps running with about 63 people in front of him. Jessica Drew, on the other hand, scales the building, jumps off, and starts gliding to go faster. Is she flying? Wonders Peter as he looks at her. No, if she were flying, she would stay at the same altitude. She's slowly losing altitude, so she's gliding. While Peter keeps going, many students that were caught by Todoroki's eyes try finding ways out. Laura was amongst the ones caught, but she easily escapes by extending the claws in her feet and retracting them. She then keeps going. Both Harry and Riri from the support corps manage to break out of the ice and put their inventions to the test. They start flying through the air, with Clayton following suit using Sonics to fly. Before long, many students start reaching the first obstacle. Peter arrives just as all the robots Todoroki froze fall over. He jumps out of the way to avoid them falling on him and keeps going. Harry passes by a little later, just as the other students try getting past the robots. Rin from Class 1B shoots some of his scales at the robots. A couple ricochet and unluckily hits Harry in the fuel line of his glider. Clayton uses his sonics to stun the robots, tearing them apart with his sonic attack. Not so tough, huh? Says Clayton as he keeps running, trying to catch up to Peter. Peter keeps running, mostly ignoring the robots, jumping over them when they approach. He slowly nears the second obstacle, but sees Harry start falling out of the sky. He waits for a moment to help his friend, catching him right before he crashes. "What happened?" Peter asks as they land on the ground. "I'm not sure, I ran out of fuel. I think I was hit by something," answers Harry. "I thought I told you to reinforce it. It's not really good for hero work or main transportation if it can break easily," says Peter. "I honestly did in the designs, but they weren't approved in time for the sports fest, so I had to use the prototype," Harry explains. "You good from here?" Peter asks, setting his friend down. "I mean, the festival is more for the hero course, so go make your mark. I'll be fine," answers Harry. Peter keeps going, running as fast as he can. In no time, he reaches the second obstacle. There are already some people there who are trying to assess the situation, and some even that are already passing by. Stu looks over the pit and jumps into the balancing beam. Peter assesses the situation, takes a couple of steps back, and runs full speed, jumping straight into the void. "Wow! And Class 1A's Peter Parker has jumped right into the huge hole in the ground. Such an unexpected development," shouts President Mike from the commentator's booth. The audience thinks he's jumped to his death. "Don't be so quick to write him off. That boy knows what he's doing," says Aizawa. "Yahoo!" screams Peter, swinging back up. "This is awesome!" He falls again and keeps swinging. "I've never been able to go so fast. Never really had that tall of buildings I could legally swing from." At the same time, Liz, Sam, and Riri fly over the second obstacle. During the flight, Riri's propulsion system runs out of power. She falls down, but manages to hold on to the balance beam. She can't do a pull-up, and ends up staying there for the rest of the race. Both Sam and Liz stop their flying when they land at the end of the second obstacle. Sam finds himself without any more energy, and Liz is scared of overheating. Peter keeps going until he gets to the end of the second obstacle. A couple of people in front of him, no more than 20. He runs until the third obstacle. He takes a deep breath and just sprints through. "Wait, what's happening here?" shouts President Mike. "Peter Parker's surprising us again by just running through the minefield without setting anything off. How lucky is he?" "It's not luck. His quirk has many different facets to it. One of them is a low level of precognition, or spider sense like he calls it. It usually warns him of dangers directly, but he's using it subconsciously to just avoid the mind," says Aizawa. Peter slowly gets closer and closer to Paco and Todoroki, who are at the front. Todoroki tries to stop him by freezing him over, but Peter avoids the ice by jumping into the air. Unluckily, when he lands, he slips on some ice and triggers a mine, sending him back a bit. After a moment, Peter recuperates and keeps going. While he tries to catch up to the two again, a huge explosion is set off around the beginning of the third obstacle. Izuku Midoriya comes at the people in first place at great speeds. He catches up to them and keeps going. Both Paco and Todoroki put their differences aside and go after Midoriya. Midoriya, however, times his landing perfectly, managing to stun both opponents. He keeps running and ends up winning the race, with Todoroki, Baku, and Peter finishing close behind. The obstacle race ends, and the students are called to gather around midnight. She explains that only the top 42 will advance to the next round, before revealing that the next event will be a cavalry battle. She explained what that means exactly. After, Midoriya goes around trying to assemble his team. Most people turn him down, but Uraraka approaches him and they decide to team up. After that, Hatsume joins them as well. Taking her vengeance into account, Midoriya starts coming up with a strategy. He goes to Peter to fill out the team, deciding that his spider sense would be the greatest asset possible. Peter goes around wishing the other teams luck and putting a spider tracer on them. Him and Hatsume high-five, saying, "Team support!" when Midoriya asks him to the same team. The other teams slowly assemble, a bit differently than the main version of events. Once the second event starts, everyone goes after Midoriya's team, wanting to take the 10 million points. The team flies away, using Peter as the main propulsion since he can jump pretty high, and later activating Hatsume's invention to stay up in the air a bit longer. You know, it's a bit weird carrying around someone around that doesn't have any weight. I guess this is how it feels in space, Peter comments while they're in the air. Spider sense goes off, and he uses his mask to look who's close by. Peter shoots a web line at the roof, using it to maneuver the team away from Bakugo, who's flying at them. They do pretty well for the rest of the match, but after 5 minutes of evading attempt after attempt to steal the 10 million points, they end up failing. Todoroki's team managed to steal it. However, Peter managed to shoot a web at Todoroki's neck, so he still managed to take a couple of headbands in the process. The group still tries to take the 10 million back, but they fail, instead taking a couple smaller headbands. The second event ends with Todoroki's team in the lead, consisting of Todoroki, Yayorozu, Kaminari, and Ida. Midoriya's team second, consisting of Midoriya, Uraraka, Peter, and Hatsume. Bakugo's third, consisting of Bakugo, Kirishima, Kamala, and Clayton. And Shinso's fourth, consisting of Liz, Laura, and Jessica. After the second event, the students are given some time off to go have lunch. After lunch, the final event is revealed to be a round-robin style tournament. After lots are drawn in order to determine who'll be fighting who, the final round is announced. The matches end up being Midoriya vs Shinso, Todoroki vs Jessica, Peter vs Liz, Clayton vs Kaminari, Ida vs Hatsume, Kamala vs Yayorozu, Laura vs Kirishima, and Bakugo vs Ochako. The first match of the first round starts with Shinso taunting Midoriya. Midoriya responds to his taunts, thus Shinso's quirk activates. Shinso orders Midoriya out of the arena. Midoriya starts walking out while Shinso talks to him, but before he steps out, the vestiges of One For All move his fingers while Midoriya activates One For All. The flick of his finger causes a gust of wind that flies across the arena, and the damage he took snaps Midoriya out of the brainwashing. He then attacks Shinso, eventually pushing him out of bounds. Midoriya passes to the next round. Before the second match, Todoroki has a talk with his father, which angers him. The second match starts. As soon as it does, Todoroki unleashes a huge ice attack at Jessica, freezing her in place. Jessica tries to struggle out of the ice. She musters all her strength and unleashes a bioelectric attack, which breaks the ice. She steps out and runs at Todoroki. Todoroki, a bit sluggish from having all that ice, gets ready to defend himself, but as she runs, Jessica tips to the right, falling over and passing out. Todoroki passes to the next round. The third match is Peter vs Liz. They both step into the arena. "Ready to lose, Peter?" asks Liz. "What's the matter? Not so confident to call me Puny Parker anymore?" "I'm not losing to you. Flash? Maybe, but not you," Peter confidently states while getting in a battle-ready position. "Ready? Begin!" announces Midnight. Liz instantly sets her arms on fire and shoots 2 fire blasts at Peter. Peter jumps up into the air, easily dodging them. "Wow, so acrobatic! Where was this in middle school?" she asks while shooting another blast. Peter dodges the fire blast and answers, "We kinda weren't allowed to use our quirks at school, remember? Even in gym. That didn't stop Flash, though. If you had paid attention to the story of me getting arrested, you'd know about this." Peter shoots a web at Liz and then runs at her. She quickly burns it off her face, but Peter gets there fast enough, hitting her over the head. "You know, I recently beat a villain with fire powers. Yours aren't as hard to deal with as the constant heat of Molten Man," Peter says. He shoots 2 webs, one at her face, again, and another at her feet. Peter jumps at her again. She burns the web from her face, lighting her hair on fire in the process, for it not to happen again. She sees Peter coming at her and tries to step back, but her foot is stuck to the ground. Seeing no other alternative, she combusts her whole body, turning herself into a full fire form. Peter's forced back because of the extreme heat. "Wait, how are your clothes burning off?" asks Peter, curious. "I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure mine aren't fireproof. Not that I mind, honestly, it would be very distracting if they were off. You know how many times the uniform burned off during training? Vlad King asked for a special one for me that was fireproof," she answers, flying at Peter, intent on pushing him out of bounds. Peter's spider sense goes off in time, so he manages to jump over her. "Okay, so no more webs aren't gonna work. What else do I have up my sleeve?" Peter asks. He pulls a special web cartridge from his pocket and puts it in his web shooter. Liz turns around in the air before leaving the arena and flies back at him, trying to push Peter out again. He jumps over her and shoots out the new cartridge, a foam coming out. He manages to cover her arm, legs, and torso with the foam. The foam solidifies, absorbing the heat from her body, so she turns to her normal state. "What is this stuff?" she asks as she falls to the ground, trying to struggle out of it. "A fast-acting compound mixed with my webbing. That's designed to stop fire users. The foam uses energy from its environment to solidify quicker, so it's perfect for someone like you." "Come on, I told you I fought someone who uses fire. Did you really think I wouldn't adapt?" Peter asks. "Well played," says Liz as Midnight announces the match over and gives Peter the victory. Peter grabs another cartridge meant to dissolve the foam and freeze her, saying, "Too bad that was my only cartridge. It was hard to make. I was planning on using it on Todoroki, but seeing as you went full fire star, it was my only option to keep going." Peter then returns to the viewing area where Kitty congratulates him on winning the battle, having saved him the seat next to her to watch the other matches. While he isn't fighting, Peter watches the other matches attentively, not only to figure out how to defeat his opponents, but also to see if he gets any ideas for inventions. The fourth round is Clayton versus Kaminari. Knowing that his opponent will try and end the fight quickly by using an electric discharge as soon as the match starts, Clayton uses his sonics to break the ground, hiding behind some of the concrete, while Kaminari uses his indiscriminate charge. After he's used up all his power, Clayton steps out of the debris and pushes Kaminari out of bounds. Clayton is the one to pass to the next round. The next match is Hatsume versus Ida. Hatsume uses Ida as a human advertisement, making all the other support corps students jealous that they didn't get further in the festival. After the round is over, she steps out of bounds, so Ida is the one to pass to the next round. The sixth match is Kamala versus Yayorozu. It starts with her making a shield in order to defend herself. Kamala immediately attacks, punching the shield with an embiggened arm. She dents the shield, causing Yayorozu to open herself up. Kamala uses her other arm to grab Yayorozu. She then moves her out of bounds, setting her down, winning the match. The seventh match is Laura versus Kirishima. As soon as the fight starts, a snikt is heard. Laura extends her claws and charges at Kirishima. Kirishima hardens his skin. He takes a couple of slices, but after she attacks over and over, Kirishima starts bleeding a bit. Laura ends up slicing Kirishima, hitting him over and over again until Kirishima can't keep up his hardening anymore. She pins him down as soon as she can, winning the match and passing on to the next round. The last match of the first round is Baku against Uraraka. Sadly, after a whole bunch of struggling, Uraraka loses to Baku's immense skill and power. The first match of the second round is Todoroki against Midoriya. The match goes on for a bit, with Midoriya focusing on helping Todoroki more than winning the match. He does his best and manages to get Todoroki to use his flames. Midoriya ultimately loses the match and Todoroki passes to the next round. Both Clayton and Peter step onto the arena, ready for the second match of the quarterfinals. "You aren't beating me again, understand, Parker?" Clayton shouts. "Your cheap tricks aren't going to work on me." "Cheap? That foam from the last round cost me 2 weeks' allowance. That's not cheap." "And I thought I made it clear I prefer being called Peter," Peter says in response. The fight begins and Clayton shoots a sonic attack at Peter. Peter tries to dodge it, but it going around at the speed of sound hits him. Peter gets thrown back a bit, but uses his stickiness powers not to be thrown out of bounds. He shoots a web at Clayton, trying to blind him right after he runs to the left. Clayton shoots the web away with a sonic blast and says, "I told you, your cheap tricks aren't going to work." "Cheap?" Peter responds. "These tricks are well thought out. They aren't exactly cheap." He shoots a barrage of small webs at Clayton. Not being able to stop them all with his sonic blast, he creates a small barrier around himself for a couple seconds. "That's tiring," Clayton says, recuperating from the attack. Peter uses the opportunity to run at Clayton, trying to punch him. Clayton recuperates quickly, shooting a strong sonic blast at Peter, which pushes him back a bit. Peter regains his composure and runs towards Clayton. In order to stop him, Clayton prepares a high-range sonic blast. Peter doesn't let Clayton stop him, thinking that if it's not now, there's no way of winning the match. He uses his stickiness powers to cling onto the floor. "No, I'm not gonna let you win, Parker. Not again. Not ever again," he shouts, increasing the potency of the blast that's hitting Peter. Peter's pushed back, again, but he manages to catch on. He starts wall crawling on the floor, slowly approaching Clayton. Clayton sees him approach slowly, increases the sonic blast to its maximum capacity, but Peter still holds on and keeps going. Peter manages to get as close as 1 meter before Clayton stops shooting. Peter, holding on to his head since he now has the worst headache of his life and a very loud ringing in his ears, stumbles towards Clayton and shouts, "Clayton, are you okay?" Clayton falls to the ground, having passed out. Moments after he passed out, Peter's vision starts getting blurry and he himself falls to the ground. They are both taken to the infirmary where Peter heals before the next match starts. This is mainly because his enhanced healing pairs up great with Recovery Girl's quirk. Kitty knocks on the door, having come to take Peter to the stands in case he has a bit of trouble moving. "He's good to go. It's your friend here that I'm worried about. In all seriousness, all of you in Class 1A are too stubborn for your own good. First, Midoriya breaks his bone in the fight against the son of the number 2, and now this boy shattered his bones in his arms with Sonics and rips his muscles apart in order to defeat you. He's lucky nothing too important was damaged, but he does have internal bleeding," Recovery Girl comments. "When he wakes up, can you tell him that he fought well? And to not push himself so far next time?" asked Peter before leaving. "Sure," answers Recovery Girl. The next match is Ida against Kamala. Ida tries to push Kamala out of bounds quickly, but Kamala embiggens her feet to make it harder. She then grabs Ida and throws him. Ida doesn't have much control of the direction he flies in, so he falls out of bounds. Kamala passes to the semi-finals. The last match of the quarterfinals starts with Bakugo going after Laura. Laura tries to defend herself, but Bakugo using mid-range attacks puts Laura at a big disadvantage. Laura still manages to fight back, healing the damage caused by the explosions and slicing at Bakugo. Bakugo evades and, seeing no other alternative, fires a full force explosion. The explosion has enough force to throw Laura out of bounds, but she extends the claws in her feet and clings to the ground. When the smoke from the explosion clears, Laura is revealed to be fully burned. Some bones are even visible. "Oh, that's a terrifying sight, ladies and gentlemen," says President Mike. "I advise if you have young children watching to look away." She can't keep going. Midnight starts, but the burnt Laura starts moving again, running at Bakugo. She jumps into the air to slice at Bakugo. He again fires a full force explosion, hurting his other arm in the process. Since she can't avoid it or be stuck to the ground, Laura is thrown out of bounds. Bakugo passes to the next round. "That was a terrifying sight, but don't worry about her too much. She's a very fast healer," President Mike informs from the audience. The first match of the semifinals begins with Todoroki shooting an ice attack at Peter. Peter jumps into the air, landing on the resulting ice pillar. Todoroki shoots an attack after attack, but Peter, using his spider sense, manages to evade them all. After 2 minutes of continuous ice attacks, Todoroki looks pretty frozen over, having exhausted his ice side. "You are like a bug that's very hard to squash," comments Todoroki. "Why, thank you," answers Peter. "You know, honestly, I thought you'd have an easier time with me. I thought you were over your whole 'I won't use my fire because of my father' thing. After your talk with Midoriya, that is." Peter lunges at Todoroki, trying to kick him, but Todoroki makes an ice wall in the middle, stopping Peter. Peter scales over it, causing Todoroki to make it a dome. "It's not that simple," Todoroki answers. "The fight with Midoriya brought up a lot of old memories and emotions, and now I find myself wondering if I did the right thing." Peter tries punching the ice dome to get through, but finds it too thick for normal punches. He jumps into the air and falls onto the dome with a roundhouse kick, breaking a huge hole into it. "It's not something I can answer, Todoroki. Ultimately, this is your problem. It's your decision to make," says Peter while jumping at Todoroki. Todoroki strikes at the right moment, freezing part of Peter's arm, but Peter jumps away before more of it can be frozen. "I just don't want to have to rely on his quirk!" Todoroki screams, shooting an ice attack as Peter creates some distance over the frozen battlefield. Peter hides behind one of the ice walls and starts breaking the ice that's on his arm while saying, "Look, if you want to defy your father by not using your fire and symbolically say, 'Fuck you, Dad,' that's fine. It's your decision. I'm not going to pretend we could hear everything from the stands, but I do know that what Midoriya said struck a chord for you. I may have a quirk very similar to my other family members, but it's different enough. My quirk is my own, and so is yours. The moment you were born is also the moment you stop being a part of your parents. Your father or your mother, Peter says. He jumps out of the wall and goes after Todoroki, catching him by surprise. He flings him across the arena, but Todoroki manages to catch himself before falling out of bounds. Your ancestors don't define you, Todoroki, but if you feel so much turmoil over the situation, maybe talk to another member of your family. Mull it over with them. Family is always there to help, Peter says. Touched by the words of another of his classmates, Todoroki lets his guard down, unleashing his fire side as well as his ice side. He shoots a fire blast at Peter, which he barely manages to avoid. Damn it, this would be the best time to use the heat foam, Peter says while dodging. Todoroki shoots another fire attack at Peter, forcing him against an ice wall. Peter tries to jump over it, but Todoroki is ready for that, shooting a fire blast through the wall, melting it. He discreetly shoots an ice attack close to the ground while shooting a fire blast at Peter, forcing him to where the ice is going to hit. Since he's in constant danger, Peter's spider sense is no use. Todoroki caught Peter in his eyes without Peter even knowing it. He then shoots another ice attack to trap Peter. Peter tries to evade but finds his foot stuck. Oh crap, he whispers as the ice traps him. Thus Peter loses the match and Todoroki passes to the next round. Todoroki breaks Peter out of the ice while saying, "You gave me a lot to think about. I'm not sure if what I did was right, but again, got swept up in the battle. I will probably take your advice. Thanks a lot." "Don't sweat it, man. You fought well," Peter says. "You too," says Todoroki as he leaves the arena. The second round of the semifinals is Kamala versus Bakugo. The fight starts with Kamala trying to catch Bakugo to throw him out of bounds. Bakugo uses his explosions to evade her more easily and then goes after Kamala, hitting her with small explosions across her body. He grabs her arm, spins around, using an explosion to go faster and catapults her out of bounds. Bakugo passes on to the finals. The finale. It starts with Todoroki trying to freeze Bakugo in place, but Bakugo manages to prevent it by using his explosions. The fight begins in earnest with Bakugo attacking Todoroki and trying to throw him out of bounds. Todoroki makes an ice ramp to catch himself and throws himself back into the arena. Bakugo prepares his Pulitzer impact attack. Todoroki prepares to counterattack with a combination of fire and ice, but the doubt settles in and he steps back. Bakugo hits him with a Pulitzer impact. The resulting explosion throws Todoroki out of bounds and he is knocked unconscious. Bakugo, angry that his opponent didn't go all out, goes towards his unconscious body, threatening him. Midnight knocks him out using her sleeping gas before it can do much damage to his classmate. After the tournament finishes, All Might shows up for the medal ceremony. Both Peter and Kamala are given a bronze medal. Todoroki is silver and Bakugo a gold. Along with the medals come a couple of words of encouragement. They're all taken very well, except Bakugo's. He's lashed out at All Might, but can't do much since he's bound to a column. They hold the closing ceremony for the festival and the students head home. When he arrives at home, his brothers jump onto him, congratulating him on getting 4th/3rd place, and telling him that they want to go to UA too. "Thanks," says Peter. "I'm sure you'll do great." He thinks back on the battle against Todoroki, remembering the words he said, and so he hugs his brothers tightly. And that's the end of the video. I know it was a long video, almost 40 minutes just of the main content, but the script also took a long time to make and was a lot of words. 6,666 to be precise. As of last time I checked at least. It may have changed through some modifications I did while I was reading it. I do hope you all enjoyed. I'm really enjoying doing this series, although it's kind of underperforming. I put a lot of effort into this one and all my others at the moment. I hope you guys are appreciating that much. I know not many people are listening to this, so write in the comments, Midoriya should have won against Peter. If you reach this part, I just want to know how many people are gonna write that, because usually like 9% of people stick to this, and I don't know how many people write comment. Still, I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I'm slowly leading up to stuff and building stuff up. And that said, I hope you all have an amazing day, amazing week. Until next video, next time you watch me, next time you do whatever, have a fantastic day, everyone. Bye!